all the time in the world. And we will talk about all the stuff that Georgia already said, and about some sort of hard beginnings of our NGO. When I say our, I want to emphasize that because in 2016, I was the only person talking about light pollution here, and now there are lots of us, and we have like a really nice community built here, even though I think we are still small when I compare it to the problem of light pollution we have here. So with no further ado, I would like to start with my PowerPoint, because I selected a few photos that I think that will show the most show our work most efficiently. So this is some kind of a wonderful photo that looks like really professional and like we are really sure of what we are doing. And this is only for the starters. And later you will see some other photos that show actually how it is really challenging to talk about light pollution and to organize events related to it in a country where nobody talked about light pollution before 2016. So the first workshop we organized looked like this. It is for a science fair, and we worked with Society of Young Researchers. I was still bachelor studies, and a few geographers and I wanted to show people how the streets could look like with different setups of lighting. As you can see, this is not really successful as we imagine it to be, but we kind of showed people what we talked to people about what we wanted, and we had all sorts of stuff later on that workshop. But what is the most important thing? It is that this is the first time that in Serbia anybody talked about light pollution and talked to children about it and their parents, and about the perils that bad lighting can be for children at that age. Shortly after, we had a first lecture in our planetarium, and you can see a lot of grown-ups and some children here that were also listening about light pollution the first time, and we called it Where Did the Great Bear Go? And I think I prepared it for a month because I was still in love with physical geography at that point, and I was kind of we have a word in Serbian. It's not maybe it's falling in love. We say zaljubljen. It means when you're so obsessed with that new thing or person, but in this case it's a thing that you want to know all about it, you want to talk all the time about it. And yes, this was my part of zaljubljivanje in light pollution and talking constantly about it. And you can see I talk a bit more. This is under the tent at the Messier Marathon we had at Forest Fruška Gora. And there were lots of kids and grown-ups and everybody that listened to this talk under the tent. And it was quite unusual experience. And later we continued giving our talks to elementary schools, high schools, because we saw that kids are the best ones to approach when it comes to light pollution, because they are I think they are broad-minded, more open-minded than the elderlies in our country to listen about things like this. And of course we bought them with Voldemort, with Star Wars and everything. And that was our punchline for explaining some concepts of darkness. And then comes the hard work. Now you can see this is like women in dark skies, and mostly in these photos will be women that are working hard to make black boxes so we can show it to some other, it's a European researchers night, and we couldn't get a separate room for us. So we decided to bring darkness into the city mall, and we made several like city. We had a city situation, we had a nature situation, and we had different setups of lightning in one box that we showed to people that were coming. And you can see now the process, and it was a lovely time in July under the what's the word for it, biologists use it for growing plants. So you can imagine how it was hot in the July with all the oil color that we had to put on the in the boxes. So on the left, you can see a really nice try to make a nature setup with different colors of stars, because we couldn't find like uniform lightning in the middle of July, and we had to explain to them it was only artistic show. But you can see that they're really interested. I think we had more than 500 kids in one night in 4 or 5 hours. It was crazy because they were coming and watching in our boxes, and we also used VR to show them how night sky looks like on not under, but above the Scandinavia or Alaska or some other polar areas. And there is one short digression I have to make here because it's really funny. The youngest kids were thrilled to use VR at that time. It was still popular. And one little kid said that he saw Santa when he was looking. And then the raging crowd of kids were starting to pull each other to take VR to see the Santa flying in the night skies over Scandinavia. And it was crazy, but it was a really I would say a nice experience, because you can see how they are thrilled to hear something new, something they don't teach them at schools. And there was even some TV crew that interviewed kids what are the most important, most interesting things they saw. And I think that 6 out of 10 kids told them that they saw our workshop, and there were like 60 workshops there. So I think it was like we painted, we drilled, we used a lot of tools that we never used before, but we made our point, and we from this point forward we had such a good energy. Of course, we had another lecture about it, and we had such a good energy, that crew that worked on all of this, that we decided to make our own NGO that will deal with light pollution exclusively. And this night we had our like founding meeting. It was on 19 February, so it was a super moon that night, and we, the 3 of us, went on Fruška Gora just to have some kind of small party celebration. And we made this photo, I don't know, just for some sentimental reasons, to have something to remember. And after that, everything went spiraling up, because we decided to make some kind of a festival, Dark Sky Festival. And as a promotional activity for that Dark Sky Festival, we decided to make some kind of a night hike on a nearby mountain. And we called it Astro Hike, because we had astronomers, and we had a lot of astronomy stories during that hike and on a break. And we, of course, we held it in the nighttime hours. And we thought, because we were newly founded, nobody knew us except few of our people. And we thought that maybe 20 or 30 people will be brave enough to come with us. But it happened that more than 300 people applied, and we had only 6 volunteers to process all this in the nighttime environment in the forest. So we got panicked because we haven't see it coming. And then we decided to downsize to 200. And even though it was our kind of best, we wanted to be secure and everything, that everything will be fine. When we counted at the end how many people showed up, it was more than 200. It was maybe 260, because they just wanted to come. It was something completely new. They never heard about something like that. And our starting point that we thought that people will ask themselves, why would you like to go in the darkness, in the woods? And, but it seems that people are starving for such events here, and that they really care about the night skies and the dark skies in general. They just didn't know it by then. And this event was crazy because, as I said, we had 6 volunteers, but we placed them strategically so people don't get lost. And this is the part when this resourcefulness is something that is really important, because we were organizing a logistic for maybe 50 people at most. And then we needed to figure out the way how we will put those volunteers in the walking, in our hiking trail, so that nobody can go somewhere that is not supposed to go. So we had some crazy logistics at the very moment invented there, but it showed up to be good. So we put people, those 6 people, to stand at some critical points by the time that the last man cross by them. So basically we all 6 of us that knew the trail went forward, and we were just putting them left behind to wait for the last person in the crowd. And what was really interesting for us at that point was that we started, as you see on this photo on the right, we started in some dawn, not a dawn, but evening started to fall, and it was still light. And before we entered the forest, you can see the sun on one side, really small rays of the sun, and when you look at the forest, it was dark. And 200 and how many people I said, when they were going like this and haven't approached the forest yet, they will shout, they shouted, talked, and having fun. And when we came to that point when we supposed to enter the forest, I stopped the line so we can all get into the group, and everybody that approached to the forest just stopped talking. I haven't said anything. I didn't want them to stop talking or anything. They just stopped talking and start watching it, and just all of them watched at the forest, probably worried and asking themselves, why did I did that at the first place? And of course, there were lots of let's say, they were surprised that out of 6 volunteers, 4 of them were girls, and the girl was taking them to the forest, which looked rather young. So I think they were a bit scared, and that's when the girl power actually came, and everything was fine. But when people entered the forest, they were still like 20 minutes of silence. Can you imagine 200 people in the forest in silence, only whispering to each other, and nothing changed? It's like we don't have anything bigger in our forest than the rabbit, so nothing can harm them, and the trail is quite nice. And after 20 minutes they started talking and felt a bit lighter and more comfortable in the darkness. So it was something that was really interesting for us as a first experience. And after that, it was a really nice success, and we continued that promotion of our program, of our festival. And then we wanted to not only, we wanted to ask somebody to give a lecture about the things we do, but the problem is that in Serbia, nobody deals with light pollution or astronomy tourism. And we were wondering who is a high profile person, who is interesting enough, and who can say something only about the beauty of the night sky. And then we realized that we can ask Snežana Radojičić. This is a cyclist from Serbia. She's currently in South America, and she started when COVID started from the southest part of South America and is going to Alaska. And she was at the Serbia at that time. She's really famous for all these endeavors she makes with bike. And then we asked her to talk about nights under the clear night sky, because she visited Gobi, she been to various parts of Asia, and she's a female cyclist always traveling alone. So it was really interesting for us to see her perspective of a night. And we asked her to tell them what it's like to camp out in the middle of Gobi Desert under the clear night sky. And then it was a really good thing, because then she told to the public that she was more afraid of the day than of the night, because she was more secured during nighttime and never felt any kind of unpleasantness during the night hours, because the only unpleasantness she felt was from the people, and there were smaller chances to meet people during the night in the forest or wherever she camped. So basically, yeah, she kind of gave darkness a better feeling for people that listened to her. So this is kind of part where we needed to get creative, because how can you invite somebody to talk about light pollution when nobody talks about it and nobody knows about it? So these kind of let's say speakers that have positive relationship with darkness helped us. And then there is a festival. We called it Star Triathlon, because stars, because this is the first phenomena you lose out of your sight because of light pollution. You can perceive it. And the triathlon, because we wanted to emphasize three fields. It's nature, it's astronomy, and it's arts. And everything that is related to dark skies and has some connection to dark skies and light pollution. And as I said, this is kind of really nice picture and everything, but we have lots of other pictures which are not so nice, but are really, really good. This a good example of the resourcefulness and creativity we had to have here. And this is one part when we only started with the festival and people were gathering still. And this is our like application point, because we have no stands. We had to do it on the field, on the greenery, and we had 340 people applied. And of course, we never did such, for us, that was a big scale event, because we never did anything similar. And the logistics was hard, because we had so much of a program that night. Now I think it's crazy, but then I thought it was a really good idea, because at first we had like a night hike that lasted for an hour. Then we had telescopes put in the middle of that hike on some really high point. And after that, they were coming to that place you saw earlier around the campfire. It's like a coffee shop in the outskirts of the national park, and it's really nice. And on that coffee shop, we organized lectures around the campfires, and we called it Camping with Scientists, because we had biologists and physicists and psychologists, and they all talked about the various subjects related to light pollution. And we also had two scientific popular lectures from psychologists and one person from the tourism branch. And after that, we had a dance around the campfire. It is Afro Rumba dance, because we felt it is most related to night and to some kind of rituals around the fire, when we had really good dancers. And after that, we had a jazz band that performed live, only 3 or 4 person. that performed live around the fire because we wanted to make them feel comfortable in the night, in the forest, and just enjoying darkness. So it was such ambitious plan. And of course, something had to go wrong. And I will come to that part. This is like few snapshots of a festival with those exclusive photos. You can see dancers, you can see astronomer that can put one eye down and have to hold it while watching at the telescope. Some camping around the fire, eating marshmallows and everything. And these few are crucial photos because on the left, these are three of us that were checking the night before. We checked that trail. We were so excited because so many people applied and everything was so perfect. We had a beer and celebrated as we should, even though festival hasn't happened yet. And the day after, we in the middle, we waited for all those people, and this is, maybe you can perceive it from the photo, but this is a really small space for all those people. And I think that drivers of the buses were completely confused because there were more than 300 people coming to that small place in Fruška Gora. And on the right side, this is that blondie girl here that had to climb up to take a photo of those people applying, and she made those exclusive photos for us. Without it, we had these photos here. And this is really two nice pictures because on the right, I'm showing to some lake that is on our trail. And I'm wondering if people will see that lake, and you can see how narrow is that hiking trail beside the lake. It's quite narrow, and we are wondering whether people will fall in it. It's like nobody's gonna fall in it. They have their headlamps and everything is fine. They will go one by one, and you can see the crowd starting to hike, and everything was fine for the first 40 minutes. And right before the lake, we had such a storm. It's like the sky fall on us in 5 minutes. It was such a rain, thunder. I don't know even how to put it. It's like end of a world, and everybody got panicked because we were in the forest and there were storms everywhere, thunders and all of it. And I knew that there was a lake coming, and I know how narrow is the path, and I was afraid that somebody will slip into it because these were conditions we haven't thought of that can happen in the middle of a bright day and 30 degrees. And of course, I ran to that lake with 3 of my volunteers, and we had to make some kind of human chain. And we were standing in that grass, and right behind us, it was a lake, and it was this slippery. So we had to put our shoes into the mud so we can be stable. And then people were crossing that path one by one, holding our hands and crossing to the next. And what was interesting that again, I have to say that resourcefulness comes in different varieties, and sometimes it's unexpected, because at one point we had one guy that was a big had bigger body, and he got afraid because he thought that he is going to fall into the lake, and he just froze, and his feet were starting to go on the mud, and he started falling to me, and he was like, his legs were like this. He made a step but haven't finished it. And when I realized that he's going to fall on me because he got scared, I just hit him in his back leg, like hit him really hard, because that's the moment when he remembered that he owns another leg. And then when I hit him, then he jumped on the other part of the lake of a boy that was holding my hand, and the rest of them could cross over it. So I don't know, it was more of instinct than something I would do, but it turns out to be quite effective. And of course, everything was fine later because rain lasted for 20 minutes, long enough to make our lives harder, but not long enough to ruin our event. And this is around the campfire. These are biologists that talk to people about how light pollution influence night nocturnal beings and etc etc. And on the right there were these are the jazz musicians that managed to perform because rain haven't fall exactly on that part of the land. So it was quite interesting. And this is one of the also my really nice stories I like to think of, because at the same year after we had that great adventure on our festival, we decided to organize some kind of event for meteor shower Perseids, and because we didn't have no money, we had no resources of any kind that can provide us with buses, with volunteers. It was the middle of summer and no students or enough volunteers. And then we decided to make a metaphor, and we call it searching for darkness in the middle of catacombs of our Petrovaradin fortress, because we can't go stargazing in Novi Sad. We have no true darkness in Novi Sad, and then we had to search her underground. And it was organized with some people that explored the underground of the Petrovaradin fortress. It is quite old fortress, and it has lots of mazes and everything. So it is quite popular for public, and they were wondering why astronomers would go underground. It was had no sense for them, but it was really interesting because we made it to sound interesting, and then people applied. And after the maze was done, we organized some kind of let's say stargazing, because it was still kind of dark. There was still a little darkness in the fortress, and we actually managed to see a few meteorites, but people were expecting a spectacular meteor shower, as they usually do when they are not familiar with astronomy. And then we had to be once again creative with entertaining them. So after we done talking about light pollution and everything, then we decided to get a guitar and start playing, so they can still have their strength, and so they would want to stay and witness for at least 1 or 2 meteors more. And it worked, of course. Everybody stayed, and it was a really nice evening. And why I like this picture on the right is also because it is also one of the moments when you had to get creative. There were like 130 people. It was the most people that ever visited catacombs at one moment, and nobody got lost. Or maybe we don't know. I guess we will never know. And when we left before we went to catacombs, we needed to get that group on one place so we can give them some kind of information. And I'm smaller than those guys you see here, so I found a trash bin and I climbed on it because it was from cement. And they were all wondering why this girl is standing on a trash bin and yelling at us. And then they realized that we are volunteers guiding them to the darkness. And yeah, it is also one of the crazy moments when people are looking at you, but you don't care because you're zaljubljen in your subject you want to talk about. So another astro hike, I won't say a lot about it because it was really successful. We had even more than 300 people here, and it was even a longer distance than the previous one. And all those people were, it's not even, you can't even see the end of the line here because it is too long. And this on the left is I think we had only 2 more volunteers for 300 people, but we were creative and we were kind of thinking through the stuff regarding logistics more carefully this time, so it was even better than the previous one. And of course, afterwards, as Georgia already said, we have our project called Ecological Supernova. We played with words a bit because this project was actually, the idea is to write a brochure on light pollution in Serbian language, because we have no resource about light pollution in our language, and to not only provide schools with it, but also to give lectures to schools and to give public lectures to the citizens. And we traveled to 7 or 8 county districts in Vojvodina, and we had lots of kids, lots of people listening to this, and we called it Ecological Supernova because supernova ejects a lots of energy at one point at one moment. So we kind of related to this because we were producing a lot of information about light pollution in 1 year, only by implementing this project. And it was really, really interesting because kids were talking to us and they were so thrilled, and they wanted for us to make excursion to some kind of protected areas in the vicinity, because I think they are starved of stars. Even though some of them have opportunity to stargaze, I don't think they think about it. I don't think they don't even have it in their heads. And of course, 2020 came and we had to be more creative than ever, and of course online creativity. And that's when we started with European Researchers Fair once again, and we made videos about how they can make their own starry sky out of a can of a beer or whatever, of a juice. So this is one shot. This is like we made our improvised small video area where we played. We have like scientific popular show called Cosmos Live. So these 2 astronomers of ours are talking about the recent news from astronomy and the debunking myths about regarding astronomy. And we have our podcast, and on the right I'm talking to the teacher of it's not teacher of religion but theology, I think, but he teaches kids in schools about religion, and we wanted to have like scientific religious communication about darkness and lightning, how it's presented through some certain religious texts, and on the other hand on scientific texts, because it was somewhere around Christmas, and we thought it will be interesting for people. I mean, you also had a podcast about fear of darkness, about architecture and the usage of lightning in not only in artistic expressions but in other more useful manners of light. And we also, in order to keep the spirits and to keep the energy going with our members, we also have our monthly hikes. And I think this is one of the nicest things we had from Corona as a legacy, because we decided we want to meet in person, but in smaller numbers and only our members. So we can talk about astronomy, we can talk about light pollution, we can talk not only about that, but on various topics. And at the same time, to keep our energy flowing and to keep our ideas going. And it's like when you're watching TV, one of them is astronomer, one is geographer, one is biologist. So every time you stop at one person, you hear another story. So it's kind of a really good thing that we got from Corona. Yeah. And this is also one of the things I never thought I'm gonna be doing because of the dark skies. This is us selling candles in the middle of July. That's why we had our arms burned, our faces burned and everything, because we don't have a lot of money, because we don't have we don't have any kind of sponsor. We all do this by our sheer energy and and will. And we have like several projects that are funded by Science Center for Science Popularization, but we are a bit constricted. We don't have that much of opportunity to buy some serious equipment regarding measuring light pollution or astronomy, some better telescopes and everything. So we need to improvise. And that's when we decided to make candles, some kind of ecological candles. We use soya wax, but I'm not sure is that ecological enough. I'm just know that it's better than palm and the other oil wax that's on the market. Let me know if there's anything better. And we recycle these jars from our grandparents or whoever uses jars, and we collect this decoration when we go on those monthly hikes in the forest, and we decorate this and make these candles and then sell them on markets, on whenever we can, so we can buy telescopes from it, and we can organize and even pay our bills for the accountant. So it's kind of it is also one of the things I never thought I'm gonna do, but I really enjoy it because it is also a time for us to bring us closer together and to talk about our dreams of what are we going to do. With this, I will finish. This is also one of the photos of AstroCamp that was organized by Faculty of Sciences. And we always go to those camps and we always talk about light pollution. We are not bored with it still, and we won't be, because we have really great people and everybody has their own story, their own point of view when it comes to light pollution and astronomy. And this is from this year. And we are happy because we are in person and doing some really good work with kids and people, as I said, in person. So for us, it's like for the dark skies, not for Frodo. And if you have any questions, I'm hoping that this 50 minutes, I wasn't that boring, and that you had some value of this lecture.
Well, Dajana, not boring at all. I think we're exhausted though, trying to keep up with you. That's you have been busy. Thank you very much. That was really insightful. So I'm going to ask for questions, and I'm going to just switch off. I switched on so that we would broadcast on YouTube. So that